Hello my dear friends and family, I'm Operator Starsky, and today we're going to talk about something that marks a turning point in the skies above our brave country. The deal between Ukraine and Sweden around the JAS 39 Gripen fighter aircraft, how they're going to be delivered to Ukraine and even built on Ukrainian territory, because generally speaking, when you're facing the ever-threatening Russian invaders, you really want your skies to be defended by something more advanced than old Soviet fighter jets. This agreement could dramatically shift the game for Ukraine's air force, its defense industrial base, and ultimately for the Russian invaders who really thought they could just roll over Ukraine drinking vodka and playing balalaika. In a few minutes I'll walk you through what the Gripen is, why it matters for our army, and how well it might stack up against the Russian aircraft. So my dear friends and family, make yourself comfortable, maybe grab a coffee or tea, and let's dive into why this step matters for Ukraine and why the Russian invaders should be very nervous. Ukraine and Sweden signed a letter of intent where Ukraine would acquire up to 150 of the Swedish JAS 39 Gripen fighter jets. What makes this particularly interesting is not just the number, but also the fact that part of the production, and we're talking final assembly, maybe even some component manufacturing, all that is being discussed to be built on Ukrainian territory. By establishing a local aircraft plant, Ukraine becomes much less dependent on foreign supply chains, which, as we could observe, can be slowed down politically. And for Sweden, this becomes one of its biggest ever fighter exports and some of the biggest agreements between Ukraine and Sweden since the Battle of Poltava. One thing to remember is that, unlike in Syria, the Russian terrorists failed to establish air dominance over Ukraine. It's a known fact. And besides that, Ukraine is now playing a long game aimed at producing modern fighter jets and building its air force around this specific aircraft. What exactly can Gripens do? Let's talk about it. The JAS 39 Gripen is a lightweight multi-role fighter that Sweden built with one very specific neighbor problem in mind. I think that you know the one. The whole concept of this aircraft can be described as fight the Russian terrorists, survive their missiles, and keep fighting even when your main bases are targeted. So Swedes made it small, smart, and nasty in the best possible way. The aircraft is equipped with strong electronic warfare suit, advanced radar on the newer versions, and weapons that reach very far. In plain words, it was born to ruin a day of a Russian Sukhoi at any altitude. The Gripen was engineered to operate from rough, short stretches of road, think 500-600 meters, with quick turnarounds by small ground crews. This means that even if the invaders lob missiles at big runways, you can just scatter the jets like the bugs do when the kitchen lights turn on. The takeoff and landing on short road strips is literally in the design DNA of this aircraft. Second is brains and jamming. The newer Gripen's electronic warfare systems can do all sorts of David Copperfield magic to mess with the Russian pilots. The main goal is denying the enemy a clear shot and keeping Ukrainian pilots alive to shoot back. Third thing we should remember is that it was made with the Russian threat in mind, and you can see it in the real life. In 2025, Swedish Gripens were scrambled multiple times over the Baltic Sea to intercept Russia's spy planes, sometimes shoulder to shoulder with German Eurofighters. One thing you should understand is that Sweden spent decades analyzing Russian aircraft, their tactics, SOPs, and all this knowledge became a foundation for building and developing Gripens, which basically makes it some of the best modern NATO aircraft built with countering the Russian threat in mind. Besides that, Gripen carries the usual modern NATO air-to-air missiles, including beyond visual range types, and also add a good radar and helmet sight, and suddenly those big bad Russian Sukhoi fighter bombers don't look so scary anymore. Now, the fun question, unpaved road operations, we covered all that, but what about hunting slow-flying drones? The Gripen is known for its slow speed handling. Public data puts typical landing speeds around 120 knots, or approximately 220 kilometers per hour, and different references mention 250 kilometers per hour as slow but doable for stable flight, which is in the same neighborhood as a Shahed's cruise. So the answer is Gripen can get slow enough to employ its guns or infrared missiles against Russian drones as well. And finally, quick reality check on its capability versus Russian aircraft. The invaders field MiG-31s, Su-27, 30, 35 family, and also bomb trucks like Su-34. On paper, some of those Russian aircraft have decent radars and decent long-range missiles, but Gripen's trick is smart sensors, electronic warfare, and dispersed ops. It doesn't need to be a heavy giant to win. In modern warfare, it needs to be capable to see first, jam well, and leave to rearm somewhere on a village road in 10 minutes, and that's exactly what it was built to do. Which is one of the reasons we can see and hear all that saber rattling coming from internationally wanted war criminal Putin and his gang in the media, showcasing all sorts of nuclear Orthodox Russian missiles, torpedoes, that are specifically designed to make Joe Rogan cry like a baby on his podcasts. But what do Ukrainian pilots say about the Gripen fighter jets? Let's check it out. So just to sum it up, let's talk about the top 5 facts about the Gripen that we should keep in mind. First is short field capability. The Gripen was built to take off and land on short strips, on roads and damaged runways. That means if the Russian terrorists bomb major Ukrainian airfields, Ukraine could still use many more places for basing. Second is rapid turnaround, because this aircraft can be refueled and rearmed on the ground in minimal time by small crews. Third is cost-effective operation, because compared to older Soviet-era jets and even the modern Russian aircraft, the Gripen is cheaper to fly per hour and much easier to maintain. Next, it was designed with the neighbor in mind. Sweden built the Gripen to counter the threat coming from a big aggressor. Electronic warfare, sensor fusion and flexible weapons make these aircraft well suited for a wide scope of operations, from tactical strikes and close air support to dogfights and establishing air dominance. And finally, weapons reach and modern avionics, especially in the latest versions like Gripen E. This aircraft carries very capable long-range missiles like the MBDA Meteor, and also has an AESA radar as well as modern cockpit data fusion. This means that this aircraft can engage threats at large distance and with speed. Legendary Ukrainian pilot Karaya has been quite clear. He said, "For me, the JAS-39 is the only fighter jet in the world I'd be willing to sell my soul for." Karaya calls it an ideal option for Ukraine's Air Force given the needs we have. He praises features like its ability to operate from damaged airfields and its quick turnaround ability by small crews. He also highlights that mixing various Western weapons into the aircraft is a big plus for Ukraine, given the variety of systems we already have. So, my dear friends and family, this is how the Gripen could change the game in our skies. But let's stay grounded, of course, because no miracle weapon alone wins a war. However, when you pair the right tool with the right people, that's when things shift. Ukraine deserves jets like this. Our pilots deserve the best, and we all deserve safety. Keep your eyes on the sky, keep informed, and as always, my dear friends, be safe. My name is Operator Starsky. Thanks for watching.
Subscribe to UATV English and stay updated on the most important events, top news from Ukraine and all over the world, in-depth analysis, exclusive reports and interviews, all on hand in our channel. Join our community of viewers and stay tuned.